Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Heather Liu of Closet Core Patterns, here with Kate Lecours at the Grand Costumier in Montreal, and Kate is the chef costumier, or the head of costumes, here at this incredible space. This is the third video we've done in this series. So far we talked about vintage denim and how it kind of like entered modern wardrobes and evolved over the decades. We talked about 60s boho fashion and how thrifting and desire to be kind of unique and make clothes your own inspired all of these beautiful dresses that people were wearing in the 60s and 70s. And now we're going to take a look at swimwear. Part of the series is inspired by what we're doing with Crew, which is our monthly subscription service. And this year, every month, we're looking at a different decade. We're kind of designing a garment that is inspired by an iconic look from that period, but doing it in a way that it feels contemporary. And I think one of the threads of what we've been talking about is how we kind of do this throughout history. We're always looking to the past. We're always recycling. And there's something so comforting to me about this idea of things just evolving and us always looking back and then figuring out how we can make it our own.
Absolutely. The link between like fashion being a pendulum, but also fashion being a circle.
So like a beautiful cycle. I think swim is a really interesting, like, do you have an, I mean, right now we're looking at this gorgeous piece.
So this is a 1950s piece. I think swimwear is interesting because it's recent, right? In our history of having garment for specific activities for women. So we'll see things starting kind of late, 1885, turn of the century is our first bathing suit. And then we'll have the swimsuit. So we're seeing kind of smaller trends, but it's interesting to see how it relates to swimming as a hobby or as a state of being for women.
And also like women's bodies, right? Because historically we might have had moments where there was areas that we were celebrating, maybe it was décolletage or maybe it was a neck or an ankle, but with swim, for most of history, women's bodies were concealed and you were only meant to see a woman's body when you were like being intimate. And so much of fashion history is about kind of like restraining women, keeping them locked into these cages and these hoop skirts. And then all of a sudden we're seeing more of a woman's body and she's free, she's swimming.
Absolutely.
I think this is a great kind of piece to start with.
So we start, this is obviously a reproduction, but this is really turn of the century where those are bathing outfit. They're not swimming outfit. The women, they can go in the water, but as you imagine,
this is cotton.
It's cotton. Having a pair of bloomers covered with a skirt, with a shirt waist, and I also want to point out the belt.
Well,
finished the look.
What I'm laughing about is that you couldn't just have a pair of bloomers. That would be too masculine. We need to put a skirt on top of it and remind everybody that this is a woman.
And also, God forbid that through this bloomer, you could see the shape of the woman's body.
Of course.
And she would probably also still be wearing corset underneath that.
Oh, that sounds like a great time.
So this isn't necessarily meant to be efficient, right? But it's still the style of some of the first swimwear. And it's very inspired by all the sailor outfit.
Yeah, this is very nautical.
And the colors also. And you'll see similar points in the early biking wear of the period.
Yeah, because then we got those giant tricycles and they needed to, have the right outfits for it.
So we start with that, bloomers with a skirt over it. Still something very, very constricting. And then you get the first actual swimwear. So this is a authentic 1920s wool.
It's wool.
It's wool.
This is like felted wool. Like I would wear a sweater out of this.
It probably wasn't felted at the beginning, but it's 100 years old and it was used and washed. What's interesting is that you have a built-in pair of shorts inside. And again, that same skirts that we had before, it's present, built in. Sometimes little sleeves. The neckline isn't really revealing. It can even be closer to the neck.
This particular thing was made in Hamilton, Ontario, by the way. There's a little label here.
And, it's knit, but it doesn't have a lot of like stretch.
Why do you think they made it out of wool? I guess it's like naturally insulating.
And I think that was just the simplest thing to make it out of, because then you have cotton And then what do you have else, right, that you can knit with?
We don't have a lot of synthetics at this period. This is a fun transition.
So we're a little bit later in the 20s. You still have that built-in short. I think this is probably like sanforized cotton, sanforized wool. It has a little bit more give, and it feels more resistant to the other one.
And what's also interesting is like it's 20s, right? So the only seam lines are happening like low on the waist. It's
Very
like even
low.
the swimsuit is drop waist.
And we keep our only patterning is still going to be the stripes. So really reminiscing again of that sailor aesthetic.
This is made by Jansen too.
So interestingly, Jansen is the first company to really produce actual swimsuits. And they're going to keep producing swimsuit throughout the eras
Are they
up
still
to today.
Yeah, they're still making swimsuits now. And you can just imagine like post, 1920s, 20 years ago, if you showed a neck, people were having a heart attack, and all of a sudden you're at the beach and you see some flapper run by with short hair, like wearing this.
And also, this is worn with nothing underneath. So if you can imagine how it clings to the body once it's wet, it caused scandals. Then we get a little bit further into the 30s. So that's the back, right?
Oh, sorry.
So we can see, but it's interesting to see how it dips now in the back. You still have the little shorts, but there's no skirt over it. But then you have like little details, like
this
like
cute
the
little
belt.
This is like a Petersham ribbon, or well, actually no, it's elastic.
It's a really old elastic
with like this cute little belt buckle.
Exactly.
This is so like it happened one night.
It's cotton, right? So this isn't necessarily meant to keep its shape, I think.
It would really get wet and saggy for sure.
But see how we still have that stripe. Again, going back to like the sailors. And
could we talk a little bit about this piece? Because if that's more 30s, now we're heading more to the 50s.
We're heading towards the 40s. So in the 40s, with the war and the rationing, right? At some point, it really starts to affect how fashion is made. And even when you go down to things that are small, like a swimsuit. So we're starting to see the two-piece happening during the war. And you'll see the beginning of the bikini.
And the bikini, if I remember correctly, I'm pulling up one out. So the Bikini Atoll Islands were where they were doing a lot of nuclear testing.
Exactly.
And so the word bikini comes from that region.
You'll see the two-piece appears before, but that's a really good example of a two-piece. This is more from like the 50s, and if you can see, this is Saxon, right? This is almost like a taffeta almost feel. So you can't imagine anybody going in the water with that. And that's kind of on purpose. So we move from taking in the water to taking in the sun. Now the swimsuit is back to being a bathing suit. So it's more about lounging around the pool and being pretty than really practicing swimming as an activity.
And this really does feel like Esther Williams. Like, I know you wouldn't necessarily be swimming in this with like rayon and satin on the inside, but it is giving like synchronized swimming. Like you can see maybe a more sportswear version of them, like them all leaping out of the pool at the same time with the little swimming caps. This lace is extraordinary. And what's fascinating to me is like we are going within the period of a pretty short period of time, within 30 or 40 years, you're going from like bloomers and shorts on top to all of a sudden like we are naked. Like we are seeing a lot of skin. And this, happened really fast.
Absolutely.
Similarly,
I love this one. Like I don't know if you can see, but it's still very pointy. The top of her bikini. So the swimwear is gonna still look at like the fashion. So I love the halter top.
The halter, and this has got stretch in it. So now, again, I think elastin was one of those things that got invented during the war. And so now this is actually something you could swim in because if it gets wet, it's going to hold to your body. It's not going to completely...
At the same time, you have all these ruffle on your on your bottoms. So this is a really good in-between between the fashionable swimwear and something that you can actually at least dip in the pool in.
And I feel like 50s too, it's a lot of seat coverage. So you're not doing a cheeky suit. You are still kind of trying to cover up your butt.
Absolutely. You don't have any like high cutouts. This is giving me very Betty Page.
Yes, very much so.
There's something of like the jungle also, and
The
like
brown.
Tarzan.
Yeah.
And
Well, I would just want to show the inside of this. So it feels like a cotton cup, or maybe that could be polyester, but it's really firm. Like it's like crunchy.
it's solid, yeah.
And there's all this kind of structure built in. So you'd actually have like a decent amount of support. Mm-hmm. And there's even a little bit of
that's what exactly
boning
what I was
put
gonna
in
say.
on the side.
We don't have a really good example here at the Grand Costumier, but there's some that are fully boned inside. So it really kind of like acts as a girdle.
And then this one's got like a traditional bra closure, like a hook and eye. So we haven't kind of quite moved over to like
That's really common for
swim closures.
Yeah, because I think that even this one, we pinned it, but yeah, it's traditional bra closure.
Okay, so it seems like we're still in the 50s and not a place I want to be.
So 50s leading into the 60s.
This feels a little more sexless, a little bit more like matronly.
This has more stretchability, stretching aspect. But if you're looking inside, you still have a whole like girdle built in. So God forbid that we can see the actual curve of the breast. We still want to shape it to what is considered beautiful. And lots of coverage, right?
Full
Even
seat in the
back.
coverage and the skirt. And I will at this point mention that Closet Core started with a 1950s inspired swimsuit called the Bombshell that was like really like as low cut as you could. And there was a view even that had a skirt going across. So I have like a particular affinity for the silhouette. The fabric is not working for me.
Too much floral, much wild floral.
But again, like a very 50s suit.
So I love also all the old tags and the name Maxine of Hollywood.
The embroidery on this is really, really beautiful.
And it has surprisingly quite a bit of stretchability, quite a bit of stretch, at least at the bottom. At the top, you still have like a built-in solid.
It's got a facing for Pete's sakes. So we're not seeing right now kind of traditional elastic use like it's used in regular swim. Like we're still kind of almost finishing these like a regular garment.
We can see, because this one is poking out, but we have metal spiral boning at the top.
So it's like really going to give you a snatch look. This one is so cute.
I love it. But again, what's interesting with that is that there's a zipper. There's a metal zipper in your swimwear. This is also Jensen. So we
and it's like a little patch that's sewn right on. That's so cute. And this feels like maybe, what do you think? Like a nylon elastane?
Yeah, nylon and elastane.
And again, like I think there might be a little bit of, I won't pull on it. There's a little bit of elastic. I just heard it kind of crunch because it's 7 years old.
That's something that we can't save, so we just try to live with it. But yeah, little bustier.
It's such a cute suit.
Love the cutouts also at this side. Like there's little cutouts here.
So cute. This I would feel like, I wouldn't be surprised if like Skims did a version of this, but just with your whole tush hanging out. And then we've got kind of a similar sister suit with this kind of cotton cotton tape.
Surprisingly, a lot of black in the swimsuit. I think there's the effect of Marilyn Monroe and the fact that black was trimming. I don't think that the patch at not the patch, but like the band at the bottom, I'm not sure it's original.
Well, it's power mesh. It's like a black power mesh.
Exactly. So like
they might have added that.
Exactly. And
like maybe it looks like this band was added all the way around just to give a little bit more cheek coverage. But again, like we have these built-in foam cups, it's really about having that built-in support to give you that kind of 50s bust shape, even when you're wearing a swimsuit.
Absolutely. So there was all these innovation, right? And what you could find in a swimsuit, how it felt. This is a failed innovation that wasn't really popular. So inside,
let's turn it around.
There's a flotation device that's been inserted, literally sewn in.
Maybe you didn't know how to swim.
Yeah. But it wasn't very popular because obviously it would add some bulk. Like
this
I don't know if
really
you can see, but it's maybe like a centimeter thick.
Yeah.
Like a half an inch. Built in everywhere.
And what's interesting about this is cotton.
Yeah.
So it's lined with cotton and it's like 100%. The stretch is actually coming from the smocking. It's not coming from the fabric itself. It's like kind of being built in with the sewing technique. And then, adding this ruching here. I just can't even imagine what this would feel like wet. Ugh.
I can't. And how the fabric would just kind of flop on top of that flotation device.
No fun.
So this is a fun anomaly that is fun to have in the collection. But
has anybody used this in a film that you know of?
Not that I know of. But maybe it's a good time to mention that people also come here for research purposes. You can rent stuff to copy the pattern, or even to use in fashion history classes, or just to like do research project.
Which we've used this place for exactly that before. Okay, we're going into the 60s. Can anybody say gidget?
So now we get into the full-blown actual, what I call the actual bikini. So
this looks like early 60s?
Yeah. Maybe even like
late 50s?
Late 50s. But you have a teeny weeny bikini. What's really fun is that there's still a lot of coverage in the butt. Mm-hmm. The diaper butt, it's
low rise.
It's still very present, but you have the like psychedelic almost print.
But what I'm seeing is more elastic here. Yeah. So in order to keep this up, you don't have a one piece that's going to hang up on your body. So you're starting to see kind of like elastic sewn into all of these seams. And here it's less about finishing with a facing or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's totally cotton. And then in the back, I mean, you can, again, like the fact that we went from that full coverage suit to like this little skin in such a short period of time. Yeah. And then this would just pull on and there's elastic in the back. And again, it's kind of gathered and smocked.
And, but I'm not sure this is necessarily a swimsuit, right? This is still by lounging by the pool at your very glamorous party.
What about this one?
Oh, I love this one. I love the color.
Yeah.
And this one also has a really, really stiff, like, cup inside.
This I would say, like, we're kind of getting into modern sewing. We've got bias, so that's finishing all these details. This is like I'm thinking like early 60s.
Yep.
Really pointy, like we haven't kind of gotten into like a natural bust place yet. But if we turn it around, and then there is elastic now being sewn and it hasn't completely decomposed. And this is the first bikini clasp we've seen.
Exactly. So this really looks like what we know of a bikini today.
I want this swimsuit. This textured fabric is unbelievable. And then here's the bottom.
Yeah, the little bottom. Now you can see less and less coverage. This looks more like what you'd find right now in a store.
Except maybe still more cheek coverage than we're looking at now.
Maybe.
But it's higher cut through the front. Okay, so now we're like, okay, it's truly the 60s now. Wow.
So you have this one. I think this one was like a modest version. I don't think that all of them have necessarily that skirt over it.
This is like basically like, I'm a fun mom.
Yeah, I'm a fun mom. But you have like lycra, like elastane, the big print, the bold color. It still feels very fashionable in terms of
like the print
hole and the halter top also.
But again, still having this like really structured shape inside. This one's made by Cole of California. Yeah. And it comes with a little matching belt.
Which you can probably also put in your hair.
Oh, of course.
So we're really moving here into the swimsuit being part of your outfit. Like you can build a whole outfit around it with like the hats and like the earrings, the sandals. So it is a fashionable piece.
And this is probably the closest we've come to something feeling like modern swim lycra. So I'm guessing that's like nylon or poly and there's elastane in that. Sorry, we're going to tidy that up. Okay, we've got our last swimsuit. It's in my color palette, so I'm very excited to talk about it. What can we kind of discern? What era is this?
To me, that's like a 70s going into 80s. It gives really disco to me. Just like the cutout at the front. I love the buttons. It's so wild. But like the really kind of plunging neckline.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't look that plunging, but it's not such a big swimsuit. So I think that it would be really quite sexy and going quite low.
The fabric is really intense. It's kind of crepey.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the back.
Like, again, I think this is the base of your outfit, right?
Yeah.
You probably have an open skirt and like really big like gold hoop, and this is your centerpiece of your outfit. I love this one. But again, still it has quite a built-in, structure.
Swim support.
Yeah, swim support inside.
Wonderful. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our tour through swim costumes, kind of starting turn of the century, ending around the 70s, which happens to align with where we designed our swimsuit pattern, the Bianca swimsuit, kind of doing this sexy disco body conscious thing. For me, I think what's so interesting is just kind of watching how the female body gets liberated. And obviously, if we were going to take this even further, modern swimwear, where it's like the tiniest triangle, the tiniest, like, how can I basically be naked? You can kind of just see that progression happening over the last 100 years.
And even, like, we didn't talk about it, but the monokini and all these that were part of what you could do, even if it wasn't necessarily societally acceptable.
What was the monokini?
The monokini was just a pair of bottoms.
Free the nipple.
So it's very Saint-Tropez, very liberated women.
Sounds like me when I go to Europe. I'm not. Sometimes it's happened. Thank you so much, Kate, for sharing this incredible resource for us. This series has been really, really fun. Hopefully we'll have you back this year to talk about some other eras. And if you're in Montreal, you work in the fashion industry, get in touch with Kate at the Grand Costumier. There's just an absolute treasure trove here. We feel so blessed and grateful that we got to take a peek inside. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. We're always talking about fashion and sewing here. It's the reason we get up in the morning, and learning a little bit about where all this stuff comes from, I think gives a lot of richness and context to this craft, and makes it more exciting to think about how we can personalize things and understanding where things started, where they ended up, and where we can kind of find our own style somewhere along that extreme.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kate. Bye, everybody.
Bye.